All right, everyone. So, bit of a different video for you. I have something that needs to be addressed, and that will be the point of the video. But rather than make it any kind of rant to address just what needs to be addressed and give it more attention than it deserves, would be a waste of time and a waste of my oxygen. So, instead of that, I'm going to make it a more of a holistic video and put a few points together that will include the rant. And we'll also put a few people straight on what UC is and UC isn't, add some philosophical ideas of life, and clear up what needs to be cleared up at the same time. So a more holistic approach to this video. Right? So I believe that we can all choose with intelligent power. So I believe that we can all choose with intelligent power how we respond to the stimuli that we receive. The ideal being that we take a pause, take a breath, and think with our own mind, also acknowledging how it feels to you in your heart and your gut, in order to possibly come up with the best response or option to the stimuli or the situation that you're facing. It's too easy to get caught out by acting or overreacting with a knee-jerk response that comes from that egoic part of you that thinks you've been offended. It's too easy to respond immediately with the character self part of you, your name, your occupation, what you are, the reputation that you've built, how you're perceived within your environment, how you perceive yourself. It's a character. You're running a character. So Lee Morrison, Close Quarter Combat, international seminar instructor, is just a byproduct of this environment in this simulation. I'm just, that's the name given me, and I am acting out a character. But that individual living out that experience within this skin suit is not all that I am. There's an authentic side to me, a soulful side, as there is to all of us. And it's that part that wisdom has shown me to take a pause and allow to respond. So I choose that this clip will be somewhat holistic, as I said, rather than a rant. It will include some factual information as to what UC is and what UC isn't. And it's also a shout out to any of you that have been involved in UC for a significant period of time and have felt that it has touched your life in some way, if it's helped your life in some way. So without necessarily intending or meaning to, I have become a mentor to many people, men and women, young and elderly, but particularly young men that have struggled to find themselves, their way. And many of them, over a period of training in 40 countries, teaching literally hundreds of thousands of people on thousands of seminars and other kind of teaching engagements, many of them have become my friends. UC is almost like a network and brotherhood of such people that when you find each other, you stay. Many have come and gone, but there's many that have been here since the beginning of UC, and you're talking 25 years now. And there's many people that I know all over that have felt that UC is in some way or another helped them on their own personal journey. So from a personal development point of view, it's helped many people. And that, in its crux, is what, for me, UC is about. It's about being of service to others. You have to have a purpose. And I found my purpose, and my purpose was to help others in some small way become more confident, stronger versions of themselves. And UC just happens to be the vehicle. So this is also a little call out to many of you that that spoke to me personally, that have posted such comments as to just what I've said, and who have found UC useful. So respond, come on now, and show that that is the case. So I don't have to pull out 150 testimonials all by myself. So if you've got time to watch this clip, give it a watch. It's more of a holistic, ticks more than one box type of video. Yeah, like I said, it'll tell you what UC is and what UC isn't, give you an idea of some of the philosophies behind it, and put a certain individual straight that needs putting straight. So it's more than just a mate. So within this business, under the martial umbrella that we talked about before, where in no particular order you have traditional martial arts, all combat sport, then self-defense through to reality-based self-defense, self-protection to combatives. And like I said before, combatives is at the extreme end of the self-protection scale. It's designed specifically for real threat to life. So it's high threat specific. So the place in which I occupy, the niche in which I occupy, is at the extreme end of the self-protection scale. And everybody that knows me knows that. Now, of course, for me, personal security self-protection begins in the first place with avoidance, evasion, escape, de-escalation, mitigation, not being there in the first place. And as anyone that knows UC, rather than just surmises from a video clip or some idiot talking, will know that the self-protection doctrine that I speak of comes from three elements: personal security, soft skills, which are all geared around non-physical application for self-preservation, and then of course the other two elements which involve the physical element as unavoidable, which is either a proactive or a reactive physical dynamic. And that will scale anywhere from needing to subdue somebody right through to ending life. And it can be taught within the context of civilian life, particularly the way civilian life is going. Military, law enforcement, security, etc. So combatives, if you like, which I was heavily involved in before it became a buzzword, is designed to counter aggression and violence on all levels, from the smallest to the highest. And I work more towards the extreme, so everybody knows that about me. So there is a level of force continuum. Even if the response that's necessary to be applied requires a physical response, it could be anything from passive control to active control, up to and including deadly force, with and without weapons, where context dictates content. The fact is, there's a fast evolving threat within the Western world, as anyone with eyes will see. And I seem to be the only one in my field that addresses these issues candidly. For the rest of it, it's the elephant in the room. No one wants to talk about it. Or it's just worry mongering, or it's just whatever it is. But the fact of the matter is, within the next 10 years, 5 to 10 years, the Western world is going to become extremely unstable, extremely violent, an extremely vulnerable place to be for most people that have just a Western view of the world, that have had 9 to 5 existence, never been involved in any confrontation in their life. For those of you really that are all unaware as to where the world is going, are going to be in for the most shock. So 10 years ago I foresaw the way things were going and prepared accordingly, or adapted my curriculum accordingly. So there's a facet within it called Tier 1 Civilian, which is specifically high threat specific, which will include measures of up to and including the use of deadly force in order to prevail in your God-given right to self-preservation sense. But to say that that is all that UC is about in terms of its training and what it offers is wrong. There's a lot more. But if you don't look, you don't perceive. You're only receiving the data and the information that your programming is allowing you to perceive. And some of that may be based on somebody else's opinion, who may be accurate or not. or be full of inaccuracies and flaws because people distort, delete, and generalize facts. I guess the point is don't judge without looking, don't presume without knowing. So, as an example, this is where the person who I'm addressing here will know who I'm talking about. Right? There's this perception by this individual that everything within you see is about being alpha male, being macho, which is just a woke excuse to bring up that newly found term, toxic masculinity. Because the fact is, real men that stand up for their families, their values, the beliefs, what their grandfathers fought for, what their forefathers fought for, are now a dying breed. And while everything's falling apart around us, the men that I would consider strong like that appear to be in the minority, replaced by something else, for which I'm not going to give you my opinion. But nonetheless, within that community of people, I guess that the tone woke said, they love this word toxic masculinity, and they love to jump on this bandwagon as, anyone that stands up or makes a stand is bad. So I'm guessing that kind of mentality has looked at UC and is saying, well, everybody is, muscled and tattooed and talk about alpha male, and they talk about how there's too many betas and da-da-da-da-da. Well, that's your perception. Actually, I wouldn't consider myself an alpha male. I consider myself a sigma, because I don't seek gratification of others around me to confirm what I know about me. I don't need anybody's okay or say. And I'm quite a loner, really. I never address my problems publicly or do my dirty washing in public, so to speak, because I'm much more of a quiet, go get it sorted person, right? But outside of that, they've created this idea or this image to their students that UC is all about being alpha, being tattooed and muscular, having sleeves, which is funny because the last I remember, the individual that I'm talking about is covered in tattoos also. Potentially 2 sleeves, I think. Anyway, the idea that we are all about violence, all in your face, all extreme, is wrong, is incorrect, right? So like I said, the martial umbrella, I'm at the extreme end. So maybe some of what you've seen is for the extreme end, but there's anything that you can dilute down right to what's considered run-of-the-mill self-defense. Now, I don't like the term self-defense because, like I said before, if you're defending, you're losing. And defense already indicates you've been attacked and now you're reacting. So you're already behind the power curve, because action will always be reaction. And it doesn't take into account that you had any awareness in the first place. But nonetheless, if you look at self-defense as a whole, right, you've got self-defense from taught in your local leisure centre by an ex-retired army captain teaching ladies how to break free from somebody grabbing their wrist. And then very tame, defensive, no proactive, reactive only material. And that'd be run-of-the-mill self-defense class. And inside of that, you might have some really, really good advice about how to deal with antisocial behaviour in your area, how to deal with harassment, sexual harassment from work, what to do, or how to speak, or how to communicate and be if you're in a domestic violence situation, and of course right down to really good counselling methods offered for young people that have not learned anything about life yet and have not learned or gathered any tools to protect themselves in a physical or emotional sense yet. There is self-defense for those people, and that's a very, very important niche. So when somebody comes along and says, what's combative's got to do with an 11-year-old boy who's been sexually assaulted by his stepfather? Well, it's got fuck all to do with it, and no one fucking said it did have. So why the comparison? And why are you using that to disrespect what you came from, right? So without mentioning any names, because This individual didn't mention any names. He spoke about me indirectly, but in such a way that I would find cowardly, right? So I'm not going to do that. But what I will do is give you a time frame, right? So the time frame is probably a year, maybe 2 years before me. They started their company using the buzzword within what it was, combatives, and it was combative. It was an asymmetrical method for using force against violence. It was a great counter-violence method. And it was around just a year or two before me, 1999, so about 97, 98. So this individual's been in this business all through my period, and you should know better, right? And the thing is, we've met. I was respectful. I've always been respectful of this person's material. I've always spoke highly, and yet indirectly behind my back, this individual has dissed me, Mikhail, Jamie Miller, all the people that come from UC and what UC stands for. Now, what I teach will incorporate high-level use of force, unarmed, with improvised weapons, where legality allows, with purpose-built weapons. Context will always dictate content. But where it comes from is a place of love, because I am pro-life. I love life and I love the people in my life. And any true warrior will tell you that all they want to ever do is live in peace. And when someone comes along to try and steal that peace on a large scale, then it's time to make a stand. So when Jordan Peterson, say what you want about Jordan Peterson, think what you want about Jordan Peterson, but when he said a good man must be a dangerous man, he's correct. Because unless you're dangerous and capable, how can you protect what you love? And any act of physical force would be a counter to a violation, because I want to protect me and mine, because I am pro-life. So it comes from a place of love. Because you understand, violence is an act of violation, and when it's imposed upon you, that is that individual imposing their will upon you in a violent way. That's a violation. Well, I don't seek to go out and violate anyone. So I would never commit such a violation. I would never impose my will on anyone. Now, if you looked at how somebody violates somebody else, you'd see violence. And if you look at how I would counter the same, you would think it's violence, because the physical activity looks exactly the same. The only thing that's different is the motivation. So like I said, I would never seek to violate anyone. I would never impose violence upon any innocent. But I will implement a use of force that will totally fucking eclipse yours if you try and violate me. So methods of counter-violence are deemed in police terminology as a use of force. A use of force designed to counter violence and stop said violation. That's what I teach. And that's what will allow me to clinically remove a threat with righteous indignation, because of my God-given right to self-preservation and to thrive and prosper. I'm never going to mess with anybody else. I live by natural law, which is simply do not steal. Do not steal my health, my wealth, my life, my prosperity, my time, my freedom. Do not steal my family. Do not steal my anything. Do not steal from me, nor will I you. Do not violate me, nor will I you. That's what I live by. So if you choose to come my way and threaten to take away all that I love and all that I love away from me, know that that will cost you everything that you have, in a physical, spiritual, emotional, mental, every sense, every fiber of your being, I will seek to eliminate in order to preserve what I love in life. And that's what I teach. And you need an extreme measure to be able to do that. So my work is at the extreme end of the self-protection scale. So armed home invasion by multiple assailants. Find yourself in an active threat situation. You're facing multiple assailants in the street. You're facing a guy who's armed. You're facing multiple armed assailants in the street. Where do you think you're going to go with those kind of events, with verbal dissuasion skills, becoming a harder target, changing your body language profile? None of those things are really going to help. You need a physical skill set, a toolbox, and that's what I provide, right? If I can't avoid, you can't escape, you can't de-escalate, I can't mitigate the circumstances in any way, shape or form, and physical force is imminent, then I will implement that physical force, and I will seek to do so first. Not always possible, but I will seek to do so first. And as I said, that could be anything from passive control, from me controlling you on the ground and detaining you, to the extreme. Right? So, but I sit at that end of the niche. The person that I'm talking about is at the other end of the niche of the self-protection scale, which is offering counselling for young girls and for abused children and everything else, and is doing really, really good work, it would seem. But this person came from combatives around the same time as me, and then sold his company and jumped into bed with this comedy slapstick sideshow act where they pull these ridiculous faces in photographs, which I think is absolutely fucking disrespectful, and charge a huge amount of money, it would seem, for their courses that are geared more towards, like I said, poor 11-year-old lad who's been abused by his stepdad. So of course this niche belongs, but you've got to ask yourself, right? If this individual started at the same time as me, now there was an unofficial vote around quite some time ago, and it was about, we were the top 5 best people in the world at this game. My name was in there. This person's name was in there, along with 3 others, right? So if you are at that kind of level of experience, you've got to ask yourself, what is your motivation for doing what you do? How have you managed to do it for 25 years? How did you get this far and this good at it? How did you get such a brand? How have you got such great testimonials? And how, are you still going forward doing the same thing with equal motivation? Well, you have to ask yourself, where does that come from? So the belief system that began that was, I wanted to help people. I come from that abusive upbringing. I know what it feels like at 6 o'clock to be in bed, left with all weekend, and then in the middle of the night, door slams, and I think, oh, is that the wind? Or are they drunk again? I know what that feels like. I left home, at 11 years old to go onto the streets of London to be a street kid till I was 17. In that time I was involved in gangs, unsavoury behaviour, football violence. I started martial arts when I was 11, and I never stopped. It's my saving grace. I've always practiced in some way. That's what kind of kept me where I am. And I believe now, serendipitously, that was all part of my life experience for me to get to where I've got, to get to where I'm going, and for me to do what I do now, which is to be of service to others, to help other young men, women, elderly, young, find strength of character to push forward and be good people, make a contribution to this deteriorating world. That's my purpose. Right? That's why I'm here. You ask yourself, why are you here? Right? What's your motivation? Is your motivation to, and the reason I say that is because if you've got to that level with your peers, you don't talk shit about people, man. You don't disrespect people indirectly. You don't not gather all the facts and disrespect people by talking shit. Right? You don't do that. You don't do that. You really don't do that. So you've got to ask yourself, why are you doing that? Because I believe that you probably wanted to help people in the early days of your career, and then something happened which changed you. And to be honest, you lost all credibility with me when I saw a picture of you once on the internet, which I won't go into here. But nonetheless, I do believe you had a good motivation to begin with. But I don't understand your motivation for disrespecting your peers, particularly seeing as they've been in this business as long as you. Is it because you are threatened in some way by your clientele base looking elsewhere because you want to keep all the customers? Is it because you've got to have your product as the best product? Is it because you actually think your product is the only thing needed and are that deluded and that everything else must fall by the wayside? Or is it just because you've got a fucking problem with me? Either way, I feel that this little problem should be addressed. Now, understand, just to disrespect and talk that way from somebody who's closer to my age is so old school. Maybe that's where the problem lies. Regardless, I do not seek anyone's gratification to know my own worth. So know that I care very little about what anyone says about me, what anyone thinks of me. And if someone's slating Mikkel's big enough and strong enough to stick up for himself, as is Jamie Miller, as are all the top UC lads that have been waved at by this person and his partner. I have learned through wisdom, there is so much more importance to us all. If you spiral inward, you will find to worry about such things. In fact, I stopped worrying about such things. When did I run out of my last bag of fucks? When was it? No, I don't remember. But it was some period ago. However, I do care when someone seeks to disrespect UC for the brother and sisterhood that it's become, to the journey of self-improvement, the direction in life, the path to self-confidence and self-belief that it has given many, for the help that it's given lots of folks of all ages, have found it to be a vehicle to self-improvement, like I said, on a number of ways in life that they've taken into other aspects, whether it's their work, their relationship, and put a stall out. They stopped being treated like shit. They've made them recognise their self-worth, and they've drawn a line where now people treat them differently, and that's not a bad thing as long as you treat with respect other people. And to the best of my ability, particularly students, I vet them on as best I can and on a personal level. Many of them are my friends, so I don't just willy-nilly teach anyone other than international seminars, what I've got no control about, and what goes out on the internet, which is there for all and sundry to see from everyone and anything. That's the whole point of the internet, to get educated. But to disrespect UC and say that that's all it's about, macho, tattoos, alpha male, bullshit, fucking in your face, violence, aggression, how does it apply? When did the special forces use it? All of this bullshit, and even relating a story, which is fucking rude, incidentally, from an incident that happened in the Czech Republic when I go shooting, that I was quite public about, where I'd been shooting on a range all day, and my clothing got snagged in my holster, and I discharged a round and went into my leg, luckily straight through. Now, I've never pretended to be anything than a beginner to novice shooter over all this time. Shooting is not a part of the UC curriculum other than within RBDS shooting, which is Martin Michalasic, who is a UC instructor. So he offers all shooting training for tier 1 civilian type events. But never have I ever pretended to be anything in any way a professional shooter, and it was just an accident that happened, a discharged round after the second day of all day shooting, and it caught in my clothing and it snagged and it went in my leg. And I was candid about it, fucking hell. And yeah, when you talk about it, you're supposed to fucking shoot yourself in the egg. Yeah, I did, silly cunt, you know what I mean? I'm human, I made a mistake. And I actually had a Czech guy who was a pro shooting champion voiced the fact that it's quite a common thing. Anyway, regardless of a common accident, regardless of this accident on the range, this individual hears about it and then decides to use that as to, just imagine if you had to protect somebody with a gun. How's that fucking relevant? And why would you say that? What sort of cunt are you, really? So anyway, because like I said, UC has been a help to many young men. Just look at Mikkel, look at Jamie. These people are good people that, needed some ironing out doing in the younger days. That they found some help and solace with that in me, and have now become strong, good people, giving good skills, good information to other people who are now writing their own books and mentoring their own people. How can that be a bad thing? That's what UC is. That is what UC is. So, Mikkel Mulder from the Netherlands, fucking proud of you, man. Jamie Miller, UK, European top boy, fucking proud of you. Martin Michalasic in CZ, proud of you and all your people. everybody who I know in Thailand, the Philippines, in the US, all across the Midwest, West Coast, all across Europe, Eastern Europe, right through to Russia, right to South Africa, who know me and know me well on a personal level. I'm proud of all of you for things that you've done, and I'm grateful that you found, you know, the teachings that I've given in some way inspiring. You know, that's my purpose fulfilled. So if I shuffle off this mortal coil tomorrow, I'm happy. So I will not have UC disrespected for obvious reasons. Now, okay, so I will now close this somewhat rant, which hopefully you've perceived as a little bit more than a rant, because there's information in there as to, like, you know, what UC is about, where it's going, a philosophical approach to it, if you like. You know, there's three facets to UC. There's UC self-protection, living in a Commonwealth country as an unarmed citizen. Then there's tier one, the civilian, which is worldwide and global, where, you know, weapons would be included. And then there's peaceful warrior philosophy, which is all about why you do it. You know, why do I practice the dark arts of war? Because I want to be in peace. You leave me in peace and you won't see them. So that's where they belong. That's the motivation for it. And, you know, anyone who's on here that's, like I said, been touched by UC, speak out, speak up. Give me some support here, all right? This is a brotherhood. Let's put this cunt straight, right? And like I said, I'm old school. And that character part of the soul being that I am, like I said, will no longer just knee-jerk. But in the same vein, I don't like cowards. So by now you will know who you are, because I'm going to notify you about this video before I actually post it, or actually when I've posted it. And explain to me, please, what your motivation is here. Maybe we can reframe your perspective through conversation, and then you won't think that way anymore. Or maybe you need to set me straight about kind of things. So I've heard that you're doing a seminar in Oxford soon. Hopefully I haven't missed it. Well, it's about 35 minutes from me. Now, we don't have to turn up as two alphas bucking horns, but I do suggest that we show up like men. What do you think? Reach out. Ball's in your court, mate. Anyway, I'll close this video now with a special thank you to all of the 40 plus schools and workshops worldwide within UC for all the time and effort that you put in over the years, for your efforts now, for all the instructors that have literally made the seminar circuit and are thriving and doing well and moving in their own direction. You know, thank you to all of you, because the biggest prize for me would be for me to produce a student that exceeds me. Ain't happened yet. But it's close, and I can see it coming. And kudos to you for whoever does that. But nonetheless, UC's a brotherhood, UC's a family. That's what it is. We pull each other up if we have to. There's a very fine intermediate core of UC that most of you won't see, obviously, because you're with me, training with me. But that's special. That's something special. That's something I ain't going to have disrespected. Like I said, say what you want about me, I couldn't give a fuck. If you have a misinterpretation of how UC is, then hopefully this has cleared it up. I work at the extreme end of the self-protection scale because somebody has to address that. Nobody seems to want to address the situation that we're, you know, seeing Somalian gangs fighting in fucking in the middle of the town outside Primark with machetes. Nobody wants to address these issues, let alone look at means to, well, what would I do? So I'm the one doing that work. That's where my niche is. Right? So like I said, you know, don't disrespect something you don't understand. Don't perceive something that you don't know. Make sure you get your facts, come and find out. And I'll give you the rest of the facts. So whatever you've got to say, come and say it. Peace and love to all of you. I appreciate you all. Peace.